Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Poor Richard's Cafe and Star Local Media. Poor Richard's Cafe, Plano's oldest restaurant since 1973. They are open daily from 5:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., serving the three most important meals of the day: breakfast, lunch, and dessert. It is true Texas home-style cooking made with love and grit. That is Poor Richard's Cafe, located off of Avenue K in Plano. Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch, being joined by Justin Thomas and Brian Murphy. And gentlemen, let's talk some 7-on-7 state tournament. A summertime tradition for Texas high school football. The 7-on-7 state tournament, it kicks off, on Thursday? Thursday through Saturday down at Veterans Park and Athletic Complex. Hope I got that right. Down in College Station. And sure enough, we got plenty of teams that are going to be making the trip south and hoping to try to capture a 7-on-7 state championship. So let's talk about it. You know, we've got the field of I guess there's going to be 128 total teams between Division 1, 2, and 3 competing down there in College Station, including 64 in Division 1, which is where the bulk of our qualifying teams lie. So let's just give a quick rundown of the teams that we do have heading down to College Station. Over in Division 1, you got Coppell, Frisco High, Hebron, Mesquite Horn, Frisco Lone Star, Lovejoy, and Marcus. And then in Division 2, got a couple programs there with Celina and Sunnyvale. So, wow, Justin, this is probably like maybe the biggest turnout I can recall recently from just for your markets. Yeah. So where do you want to start, man? Whether it's Coppell, Hebron, Marcus?
How about we start with Marcus, since they haven't been in the state tournament since 2002.
Wow, that's got to be, of all the teams that are going to be down there, that has to be maybe the longest layoff among all of them.
Yeah, definitely, at least for the teams in our little markets here.
Well, Frisco, they've never even been before, so this is their first time. So,
but yeah, like Marcus, I guess probably a lot like Frisco. You know, traditionally in the past, a power running team, they just didn't even do it. They didn't even go to SQTs or anything, especially when, Brian Irwin was the coach there. But so this is only the fourth time they've ever made the tournament. Their best finish was getting to the second round in 2002, the last time they made it. So they got to be pretty excited going down there. And I think one reason that they are headed and qualified is quarterback Garrett Nussmeyer, who's had a big offseason. He's starting to rack up some offers. He was out at Baton Rouge, out at LSU, either this weekend or last. He has offers from TCU and Penn State as well. So he'll be a junior. He's heading into his second season starting. So he's getting a lot of buzz this offseason. Seems like he's ready to kind of take a big step forward. And, obviously the quarterback is one of the reasons you have success in 7-on-7. So kind of starts there. He's having a good offseason. He has a wide receiver who's kind of making some headlines. He's a transfer from Kansas City, J. Michael Sturdivant. He's got a Florida State offer. He was recently out in Palo Alto visiting Stanford, so he's kind of getting some buzz. They have Jaden Robinson and Christian Espinoza back at wide receiver, so pretty good receiving core. Tyson Edwards is kind of the heir apparent at running back, so I'm sure he's getting some work there too. Not too familiar with what Marcus is going to have in the secondary next year, and talking to Coach Kevin Atkinson, I know he was pretty pleased with what he saw from the guys as a whole this spring. He didn't really give out any names, but said, as a unit, they're coming along pretty well. So seems to be the case in their 7-on-7 action as well. So we'll see how the Marauders do. First time in, 17 years.
Yeah.
So.
And they were 7-on-7 has been a really big part in what Marcus has done this offseason. It wasn't just like they went to one SQT, qualified, and that was that. I mean, they were really, really active in the SQT circuit. And if I recall, their record so far in those tournaments is, no matter, because you always wonder, when you look at wins and losses in SQTs, you don't know, how many kids are on vacation or whatnot, or how close the team is to full strength. But it seems like Marcus, for the most part, was really consistent in the results that I saw. Could be one of the teams to kind of keep an eye on as far as a team that might be able to make some serious headway.
Definitely.
Frisco, Brian. We mentioned Frisco, and I think back in what was it, the Northwest SQT was the one that they qualified in. And when I'm just looking over the pools there, and you have to double take when you see Frisco High in any sort of 7-on-7 competition, because that is
they throw.
Now
they do.
It's a program that averages there are years when they've averaged 6-7 pass attempts per game.
If that.
You would think the last atmosphere you'd expect to see Frisco in would be 7-on-7, and look at them going out there, and not only do they, show out well, look the part, they qualify in that one SQT that they're in. What were you able to make of just what the Frisco Raccoons were able to accomplish in their lone SQT of the summer?
Well, they were in the Frisco SQT as well about a month and a half ago, and they made the state qualifying round. They lost to Cypress Bridgeland 34-26, so they made it all the way down there. That was the same tournament that Frisco Lone Star also qualified as well. So Frisco, it wasn't just some fluke at the Northwest tournament. They're here to stay for 7-on-7. This is the first time since 2015 that they've actually even done 7-on-7. Like I said, they've never qualified for state. They're the wing tee, rushing attack. They don't really throw the ball like you just said. But with 7-on-7, it starts and ends with the quarterback. They have a guy named Corey Green. They say he's a phenomenal athlete. First-year head coach Jeff Harbert, who's been there for the last 14 years as a defensive coordinator and a defensive assistant. They're really high on Corey Green. He kind of bounced around in different positions last year. He's that type of player. He's so dynamic. He'll play a bunch of different positions, but he's got the size. He has the arm strength, and so with a couple other guys that were kind of battling him, playing other sports in the spring, Green was able to separate himself this past spring during 7-on-7, and he's played really well. And he was expecting some growing pains, and then their first few 7-on-7 outings he kind of struggled, but they've really turned it around. And he's really showed a lot of promise. Harbert also told me that this is the best set of skill kids that he's probably had ever at Frisco. You have guys coming back, Bryson Clemens, one of their lead rushers from last year, Chase Lowry, a transfer from Prestonwood. These guys playing both sides of the football for Frisco. Other guys like Dante Reese, Miles May. These skill kids, that's what you need in Frisco. They lost their entire offensive line. So the fall, we'll see how that works out, having to replace those guys. But when you have so many skill guys coming in and transfers and an up-and-coming, big quarterback that can really throw the ball, it's a recipe for success in 7-on-7.
You wonder if, I don't know, because you wonder if maybe they take any of these concepts and apply them at all to the fall, and just I wonder ultimately what Frisco's purpose is, what they're getting out of this 7-on-7. Just because again, it's a team that this style of play is just such a departure from what they're we're usually accustomed to when we see Frisco High suit up in the fall.
Harbor and his coaching staff, they were convinced by all of these players. They begged him and begged him and begged him. Hey, let's do it. We want to do it. We want to do it. He's like, okay, we'll do it.
Okay.
And we're going to see. We'll still see the wing tee. We'll still see the traditional offense that Frisco runs, that has run for the past.
Have some stuff in your back pocket just in case.
But be on the lookout. They will be throwing the ball more. That's all I'll say.
To be continued. Fascinating. Let's see. One team that, amongst the local teams that we have going down there that's going to be on my radar is Lovejoy. I'm curious to see what Lovejoy is going to be able to do this weekend. They're a program that is perennially in this juncture of the offseason heading down to state. This is their 5th time in 6 years that they've made it as a Division I state tournament qualifier, their 8th time overall. And this was a Lovejoy team that began the offseason with a lot of questions, because you talk about the importance of skill players, and they graduated just about all of them from last season's team. And then they come out in their their first SQT in Hearst. They lose their first game to Rockwall Heath 31-29, and then since then they have not lost. They've won 9 straight games, and just putting up some gaudy offensive numbers. They've averaged almost 33 points per game throughout the SQT circuit, because they were one of those where they qualified in their first SQT out in Hearst, and then they participated in the Northwest SQT, and they were in action last week in Rowlett, went undefeated in both of those. So definitely a team that did not just rest on its laurels, and has very much kept the momentum going since qualifying. They've got that offense is led by quarterback Ralph Rucker and wide receiver Reed Westervelt. Those two were just lighting it up all summer. And I don't know, just like you look at kind of their recent history, and they got to the quarterfinal round last year, and granted a completely different team. They had a very, very spirited showing though against Manville. In a 33-30 loss in the quarterfinals in last season's state tournament. And I don't know, just when you factor in just the momentum that they've had, I don't know, it's one of those teams that I think might might hang around for a little bit on Saturday or whenever the bracket phase is. Let's see. How about Justin? Whether it's Coppell or Hebron, just kind of how are you feeling about either of those schools right now headed into state?
Well, we mentioned Marcus. This is their first time since 2002. Coppell and Hebron on the other end are pretty regular appearances here. 17 Number 17 for Hebron, they're 4th in a row. Since 2001, they only missed it twice, and that was in 2014 and 15. So they're pretty familiar with heading down to College Station for this. Their best finishes previously have been the quarterfinals. They made the 3rd round in 03, 07, and 2017 with Clay and Tune there. But things got to be looking pretty good for them. Carson Harris is coming back at quarterback. You know. No Trajan Bridges this year. Obviously, he was a
whatever will they do
big impact player in the 7-on-7 level on both sides, but still pretty good at the wide receiver spot. You know, Colton Bradford and Keon Wafer coming back. You have the John Paul transfer, Jediah Henry, and then you have some two-way players, Vincent Miller and Mason Williamson. So pretty solid there. Defensively, you know, it all starts with Darius Snow. I'm guessing he'll be out there. Justin Burton, Dre Smallwood, Zaire Holland. See what their running backs. They have talented running backs in Jalen Rott and Isaiah Broadway. I'm guessing all those guys will be out there. So a lot of options for Harris, a lot of two-way players, so a lot of talent for Hebron.
Hebron's never lacking in skill position players, to know.
Yeah, they seem to be pretty, they don't lack for athletes over there, that's for sure.
Brian, how about a Frisco Lone Star? Usually a program that we associate too much, despite their, their storied lineage in the fall. Not a program that you traditionally associate with the 7-on-7 state tournament.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, the years with Jason Shelley and MJ Rivers and stuff, you don't really remember them having big-time success in 7-on-7. But, they have another quarterback waiting in the wings, transfer from Tomball and Chandler Galban, who actually just committed last week to Nevada. So they're doing well with him. Obviously, Marvin Mims, with that dynamic duo. Not too familiar who they have on defense, but, they qualified so early in that Frisco SQT. You want to know the final score of their the final game to qualify for state in that tournament was against Denison. They beat him 69-22.
Wow.
So
that means you're scoring basically on every possession.
Yeah. So
with maybe even a couple defensive scores mixed in, it's really hard to get into the 60s and 7-on-7, even if you score every possession.
Yeah, and so Lone Star, and that was after they lost to Frisco Reedy in the final pool game, 18-0. So it's like, which Lone Star team are we going to get? But when you have that quarterback like that, you have players like MJ Rivers and all the skill position guys and those defensive studs and guys like Noah Bolton and other big names. They're Lone Star's locked and loaded, and it's showing some success here in 7-on-7 as well.
Let's see, who else did we mention? Coppell. What you got to say about the Cowboys, JT?
Well, 3rd year in a row going down to College Station for the Cowboys, 12th time overall. They've had some success in the past. They made the quarterfinals in 07 and 010, and then also made it all the way to the semifinals in 2009, so one game away from the championship, obviously. Really interested to see how the Cowboys do down there. They're a team that, in terms of their skill players, wide receivers, and running back, they lost a ton. So I wasn't really sure what they would have. Looks like not only did they lose that, then in the tournament they qualify, and their starting quarterback, Drew Sanilia, was out of town. So they ended up qualifying with Kevin Schumann kind of helming the show there. So
that's a very, very nice luxury to have. Schumann was the starter at Jesuit last year, so to be able to call on your backup quarterback to come in like that and have the kind of skins on the wall that he does and not miss a beat, it's a pretty nice luxury for Coppell.
So they lost a lot of skilled players, a lot of secondary players, a lot of receivers from last year. One guy they do have back is KJ Liggins, who is a pretty ballyhooed recruit, two-way player. So he'll contribute on both ends. He got injured very early in the non-district season last year, missed the whole year, missed basketball too. He's back fully healthy, working out all spring and stuff, so I'm sure that's a nice little luxury for Drew Sanilia. And then another guy that's kind of making waves for them is sophomore Anthony Black, who was a varsity basketball player as a freshman last year, but he's had a very good spring. I know you saw him out at one of the tournaments you covered in some photos, and he kind of caught your eye. So real tall, athletic guy. Seems like he's going to
very lanky. Yeah. He's got some long arms.
Seems like he's
look like Giannis Antetokounmpo out there catching passes.
Big red zone threat for them, obviously in 7-on-7, and then moving into the fall. So, like I said, team that's had success down there. No stranger to going down there. The only time they've missed since 2007 was 14 and 16. So the guys they have been down there before. So just, interested to see how these Coppell skill players stack up against some of these other quality secondaries that you'll see out there.
And let's see, the last of the programs that we have out of our neck of the woods in the Division I tournament, Mesquite Horn, a team that was one of the last to get in last week. They qualified at the Rowlett SQT in the final week of state qualifying tournaments. Mesquite Horn, let's see, I got their results here. Let's see, how did they actually started off the day with a very inauspicious start. They lost 26-6 to Plano East. Plano East team that's going through a bit. I'd actually take it back. Plano West, I should say. Plano West. A team that's going through its a bit of a rough patch in its development. They were able to bounce back though pretty convincingly. They beat Frisco Lebanon Trail 26-20, Grapevine 37-14, and then they kind of have their way with Denison in the qualifying round 39-12. So they're headed to state for the second consecutive
Denison
year.
Taking some beatings when they get out to that qualifying round. Wasn't that Denison that your team on?
That got smacked by Lone Star. Poor Denison.
You got the you're coming off the high of all right, we just need one win to get there, one win to get to state, and it sounds like it was over before they knew it. Horn was a team that probably had the best run of any program in our markets last year at state. They made it all the way to the semifinals and had a really close loss to A&M Consolidated. Now, obviously, you don't have Jermaine Gibbons this year, so it's a different looking Horn team. But nevertheless, the Jaguars bound for the state 7-on-7 tournament. Let's see. This is a good point for a quick little break. We've got a couple other teams in the Division II bracket, and Celina and Sunnyvale to talk about, so let's pick it up on the other side of a word from the sponsor and talk a little bit about those two. Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media, 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. And now, let's get back to the podcast. And we are back, and I guess in 30 seconds or whatever after we went to a break, we found out that the pools sure enough were released for the Division I and Division II brackets.
Breaking news on the podcast.
There you go. So let's so a quick idea as far as what the local teams that we just discussed, who they're going to be competing against in pool play on Friday, at least in Division I, Thursday for Division II. For the Division I pools, let's see, we have Marcus, which is Marcus and Horn. Marcus and Horn are in the same pool. They are both in Pool C, along with Eastwood out of El Paso and Manville, the team that made a pretty impressive run last year. Then we have, let's see.
Rematch there, right? Didn't Horn play Manville last year?
Did Horn play Manville last year? Do I have that up somewhere? I don't know.
I thought we might have talked about that earlier.
It was Lovejoy that played Manville last year.
Okay.
Let's see, then we have, speaking of Lovejoy, they're in Pool J, along with Coronado, Ridge Point, and Rockwall, another Dallas area team.
48% of 7-on-7 champions have come out of Pool J. No, I just made that up.
Okay. You're crunching those numbers during the break there. That's an incredible stat. And then one letter right below in Pool K, you have Frisco Lone Star, where they draw Waco Midway, Montgomery, and O'Connor. And then in Pool M, that's where Frisco will make its state debut. They draw Richmond Foster, Austin Westlake, and Veterans. And then Coppell in Pool N against Katy, LBJ, and Wichita Falls Rider. And then rounding it out in Pool O, that is where Hebron resides, along with Cy Woods, Pioneer, and Temple. And because that's the thing, with these pools,
thoughts.
Yeah, because they spread it out they always take a team from kind of North Texas and East, West, South. So you have 4 teams that have next to no familiarity. Really tough to kind of get a read on which pools might be stronger than another. Because honestly, that can kind of set the stage for how a team fares. The top 2 pool finishers, I should say, they advance to the championship bracket. The other 2 go to the consolation bracket. So who knows? At least out of Lovejoy's pool, when I see Rockwall, and having watched that team put the fear of God in Allen last year in the playoffs, and they've still got maybe the best receiver in the state, in Jackson Smith and Jigba back, and good luck and Godspeed to Lovejoy's secondary trying to slow that kid down. That was the best receiver, one of the best receivers I've ever seen at the high school level. Let's see. So with that, we can quickly shift gears and talk a little bit about Division II. Talk a little Celina, a little Sunnyvale, and kind of what's in store for those programs. This is kind of Celina's time to shine, Brian, if history's any indication. So what's the read on the Bobcats as they begin another trek down to the state 7-on-7 tournament?
Well, just another year, another trip to state. Yep. Coach Elliott told me last week, he was like, yeah, I can't recall a time where we didn't make the state tournament. They've won it 4 times. And they're back. They're in Pool H in Division II with China Spring, Marion, and Sweeney. And you know what? They're always favorites, for this thing. They haven't won it since 2012. You have the numbers right there. The last time they didn't make it.
They started playing in 2007 and
they won it in 2000 also. So they've maybe 06.
It's like a Division III program, or I don't even know if that was around then.
Possibly no, because at the beginning they had just one division at first. They won it.
They've made it every year since 2007.
That's interesting. Either way, it's mighty impressive. Can't remember the last time they were in this, not in this tournament. Like I said, they've won it 4 times. A lot of returning guys. Hunter Watson at quarterback. He's really solidified that position. Really, really playing well there. It really helps to have your returning starter there. Logan Point. Man, he just keeps getting bigger and stronger and faster and more scary looking. He started as a sophomore. He had a really awesome year last year. Really should have been. I'm surprised he didn't get a superlative last year in that district, but I expect him to be a candidate, in 7-4A for an MVP type year. He looks really good. Another guy to look out for, receiver / tight end, whatever you want to call him, DJ Delano, 6'6", starter on the basketball team, starting first baseman on the baseball team. He's looking to make a key impact offensively for the Celina football team in the fall, and he's just a nightmare matchup in a sport like 7-on-7 where it's not so physical, and if you have that size and those tangibles, you can really dominate there. So Celina, expect them to be another big player down there in College Station again this year.
Celina, the only school among those listed as Division II qualifiers to have made it every single year since 2007. Just a very, very impressive run of consistency that the
they know how to play football in Celina.
06 was the last time they missed out.
Okay, 06.
Division I, they made it in 99, 2000, 01, 03, and 05.
Okay.
So it's like twice that they haven't made it since
99 they missed in 2002, 2004, and 2006, and then when they went to Division II, they've made it every year.
That's crazy.
They won it 3 times, I believe.
And then they won it in, was it 99 or 2000 when everyone was all popped in the same division.
2000 they won, and then in Division II they won in 09, 012, and 07.
And back then Celina was what, a 2 or 3A? And you're playing up against 5As?
Oh yeah.
So that's it makes it even more impressive.
Meanwhile, you have a school like Sunnyvale, which you look at the most storied Division II 7-on-7 program in the state. Then you compare that to Sunnyvale, which is making just its 2nd ever trip to state, 2nd in a row at that. But Sunnyvale is. Take which stock you will, but as far as what they've done this summer, there aren't too many teams that I would reckon among the 32 that have qualified for that Division II bracket that have been just as flat out dominant as Sunnyvale has been. You look at they qualified back in the Paris SQT. They went 4-0, and they're 10-0 in SQTs overall. Their average margin of victory so far has been 23.2 points. So they are just beating the brakes off of these teams. Because when you think of so much emphasis is placed on offense, and sure enough, Sunnyvale's got one of the better quarterbacks in the Metroplex at the 4A level in Trip Makeda, I believe a former guest of the podcast. He's back, and obviously that offense has just been lighting teams up. Their defense, though, has been just as impressive, I should say, if not more. They're only in their 10 SQT games, only 13.9 points allowed, which to hold teams under 2 touchdowns in 7-on-7, that's really hard to do. So no small feat in what Sunnyvale has accomplished up to this point. And Yeah, I mean they've only been down there once before. They went one and done in the in the championship bracket last year. Now, granted, it was a loss to Melissa. A really good program in its own right. So that's just just an unlucky draw more than anything. A Melissa team that wound up going to the semifinals. But nevertheless, I don't know. Sunnyvale, just based on their results, I don't know. Keep an eye on that team on the short list of potential favorites. To maybe take home a state championship this week. And let's see, what was their pool? Do you have that up there, Brian? Sorry.
1 second. Sunnyvale, they were with Burnett, McGregor, and Worthing in Pool D.
That sounds like a law firm.
Burnett, McGregor, and Worthing.
I have next to no information on any of those three schools. But we'll see. That action kicks off. The Division II tournament is Thursday and Friday. Division I Friday and Saturday. And we'll have plenty of stuff in our papers in the next week as far as fallout from the state tournament. And I don't know. I don't have anything else to add to this. You guys? Awesome. Let's take it home. So this is this has been it for the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. This has been Matt Welch, JT, Brian. Appreciate y'all for tagging along, folks. We'll be back on Thursday for another episode. Keep enjoying your week, and we will talk to y'all later.
Need a goodbye, JT.